The grand chamber of the Galactic Council shimmered with the energy of 17 star systems. Suspended in zero-gravity orbit over Calarn Prime, it was meant to represent unity, a place where light from every member species sparkled overhead like constellations woven into a dome of peace. It had never felt colder. Ambassador Langley of Earth stood behind the long obsidian desk, her fingers steepled with precise calm. Her voice had just stopped echoing. No one spoke. Across from her, the Vorthax ambassador, a gelatinous mass of bioluminescent flesh and 1,000 clicking mandibles, twitched with amusement. Touching, it rasped. Truly, the humans and their primitive passion speeches. The translation floated into the air like oil slicking water. But this council has moved beyond sentimentality. We govern through logic, not bedtime emotions. A few snickers rippled through the chamber. Polite, condescending. Langley didn't blink. She slowly rose from her seat, the motion graceful, effortless. The 3 Terran delegates beside her mirrored her precisely, like a unit trained to operate as one mind. She surveyed the council. Her gaze wasn't angry. It was disappointed. As of this moment, Langley said, her voice calm as the vacuum between stars, Earth withdraws from the Accord Initiative. That silenced even the breathing. You can't be serious, hissed Counselor Dree, a feathered insectoid from the now. This is the final session. Langley smiled politely. And we made our final offer. 3 times. Another delegate stood, Ambassador Sar of Acorn, whose race once warred with humans for nearly 30 years. He didn't look surprised. You don't want war, he said softly. None of us do. Langley's gaze flicked to him, then beyond. And yet, you keep daring us to remind you. Without another word, she stepped away from her desk. The moment her foot left the hover pad, a subtle pulse echoed through the chamber. A light blinked red beneath the Earth crest at her station. The obsidian seat shimmered, then folded in on itself like crumpled paper being sucked into a black hole. All 4 Terran stations vanished in a synchronized implosion of silent light. In their place, a small matte black cube hovered. It spun once, then stopped, pulsing. Red. Langley and her team walked across the chamber floor, through the silence of 17 species who couldn't quite comprehend what had just happened. The Vorthax ambassador snarled. Cowards, it spat. Running from reason. Langley paused, just before the threshold of the departure gate. She didn't turn around, just spoke evenly. Humanity doesn't run, she said. We retreat when diplomacy fails. And when we return. She looked over her shoulder. We don't knock. The chamber doors hissed shut behind them with a finality that sent a chill through every ambassador in the room. The cube remained, floating, watching. Far above the chamber, docked in low orbit, the Terran vessel ISS Concordia received its guests. Langley removed her blazer and handed it to an assistant without a word. She stood in the command deck, watching the stars through reinforced titanium glass. A junior officer hesitated. Ma'am, are we initiating protocol, Ember? Langley nodded slowly. No weapons, she said. No threats. She glanced back toward the shrinking image of the Galactic Council's haloed station. They'll start the fire themselves. We'll just let it burn. The cube hadn't moved. It hovered silently above the now empty Earth delegation seats, unblinking, untouched, unscanned. And yet somehow it watched. Ambassador Dree clicked his mandibles impatiently. Deactivate the object, he said to the chamber's AI core. It's posturing. A Terran tantrum in a shiny box. The Council's integrated system pulsed blue and replied with chilling calm. Unable to comply. Object not registered in any known protocol. Material unknown. Interaction rejected. A hush fell. Archon Vilek, representing the Zalari Dominion, leaned forward, emerald chitin clicking softly. What do you mean, rejected? The AI hesitated. The object declined contact. Declined, someone whispered. Before anyone could respond, the cube spun. Just once. A full 360-degree rotation. And then it pulsed, 3 times, slow and deliberate. Red, red, red. A low hum filled the chamber. Not loud, but deep. Felt more in bone than in ears. Vorthax, still smug, let out a hiss. They bluff. Always bluff. We remove the object. Make example. It slid from its station, stretching several gelatinous tendrils toward the cube. The moment the first one touched the cube, the lights in the chamber snapped out. Total darkness. No alarms. No power. Just black. 10 seconds passed in dead silence. Then, without warning, a beam of light flashed in the center of the room, projecting an image into the void. A human face. Ambassador Langley. But not recorded. Not still. She was speaking. Live. This message is for those still laughing, her voice said. For those who see emotion as weakness and silence as surrender. The lights stuttered back on, flickering like candlelight. Langley's image stayed suspended in the air, looking directly at each delegate as though she saw them. Earth offered peace. 3 times. You called us unstable, primitive, irrelevant. So we'll do nothing now. We won't attack. We won't respond. But we've ensured that when the storm breaks. She smiled. Calm. Empty. You won't know which way the wind is blowing. The image faded. The cube stopped pulsing. And for the first time in centuries, no one in the Galactic Council dared speak. 12 hours later, Outer Rim Relay Station 942. The emergency alert had triggered automatically. Relay 942 had stopped transmitting data to CouncilNet. At first it was brushed off, systems failed all the time. But when a scout drone arrived to check the station, it found the relay intact. Fully powered. Empty. Every worker gone. No distress call. No bodies. Just silence. And in the command console, one line of Terran code looped infinitely. We told you not to laugh. Back at the council chamber. Now no one laughed. They ran scans on the cube, every scanner, every sensor suite, every psionic probe available. None worked. Not because the cube was shielded, but because it wasn't there. It's projecting a false presence, said Quorn scientist Vietel, eyes glowing. That's not the object. It's somewhere else. Why? Demanded Dree, his wings twitching. No one answered. Archon Vilek stood slowly. I suggest we open communications. Apologize. Quietly. We cannot afford. The cube pulsed. Once. Its voice echoed without direction across every speaker, every implant, every auditory system in the chamber. We asked for peace. Then the cube vanished. Gone. As if it had never been there. Far above, in the ISS Concordia, Langley stood with her hands behind her back, watching stars drift in silence. Status? She asked. Operation Echo successful. Message delivered. Cube retrieved. Relay station cleared. Langley nodded. And the council? The officer grinned. Not laughing anymore. She smiled faintly and spoke the line not meant for anyone else to hear. We didn't walk away from peace. We just walked ahead of war. The destruction of Relay Station 942 had not gone unnoticed, but it was misunderstood. The Galactic Council, still rattled by the message in the cube, debated endlessly, but privately they agreed. It must have been a rogue action. Pirates. Maybe a Terran fringe faction. Earth wouldn't risk open confrontation. They still didn't understand. Not yet. Location. Orbital Outpost Minathrai Neutral Zone 0300 Standard Galactic Time. Outpost Minathrai was a floating diplomatic hub. Technically neutral. Unofficially, it served as a research base, one quietly funded by multiple council species to develop countermeasures against Terran neural networks. Illegal tech. Forbidden by council law. Not that it mattered anymore. What mattered now was that, at 0300 Standard Time, every member of the outpost's crew vanished. No alarms. No struggle. Gone. A maintenance bot logged the last activity. A soft ping on the comms terminal. A single incoming packet tagged origin, unknown. Inside the station's central command, the walls flickered to life. Security footage replayed itself on a loop. Dozens of uniformed workers were seen pausing mid-task, then turning their heads in perfect synchrony. They looked up. They smiled. Then the feed cut out. Location: Galactic Council Chamber 6 hours later. Explain this, Vorthax demanded, slamming a claw into the holographic table. Another Terran attack? Are they trying to provoke full war? They didn't fire a shot, said Archon Violet grimly, reviewing the logs. No damage. No dead. Just missing. Counselor Dree hissed in frustration. They're taking facilities now. What are they doing with the crews? They're sending messages, said a voice at the far end. Heads turned. Ambassador Sar of the Quarren rose from his seat. Unlike the others, he had once fought the Terrans. And unlike the others, he still remembered what that meant. This wasn't violence. This was surgical, he said. They knew the outpost's true function. The Neural Warfare Lab wasn't public. It wasn't even mapped. That means the Terrans had intel far deeper than we assumed. Silence. Uncomfortable. Heavy. They're not provoking us, he continued. They're warning us. Softly. No one laughed this time. Meanwhile, aboard the ISS Concordia, Captain Rin stood in the mission bay, watching a simulation replay of the outpost infiltration. No casualties? He asked. Confirmed. They've all been safely relocated to controlled environments in deep space. Wiped of all access codes. Standard neural cloak protocols applied. Ren nodded. What about the data? Scrubbed. Everything deleted before entry. No traces. They'll think the ghosts walked out on their own. Ren let out a breath. Langley was right. Terror isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's just about proving you were already in the room. Location: Galactic Council Emergency Briefing Room. Files began to leak. Not through media. Through whispers. Classified transmissions reappearing in ambassador terminals. Surveillance logs of council members discussing unethical operations. Secret weapons programs. Interrogation footage. Black site reports. None of it from Earth. All of it about Earth. Every member species was guilty of something. Someone's trying to fracture us, said Counselor Mora of the Greltan. Ambassador Sar disagreed. No, he said, voice low. They're not fracturing us. They're reminding us we were never whole. 3 days later, Zalari supply convoy disrupted deep space. For ships carrying weapons and energy supplies disappeared en route to a disputed zone. No explosions. No debris. Just one transmission pinging from the void. A text log. Short. Direct. You prepared for the wrong kind of war. Council War Room, Day 6. They're isolating us, someone finally said aloud. Not killing. Not invading. Just unplugging everything. Violet stood, fists trembling. They've been watching us for decades. Mapping our weaknesses. Our corruption. Our alliances. Ambassador Dree swallowed hard. Why not destroy us then? No one answered. Until a whisper from Sar settled, like ash over fire. Because humans don't burn cities. They collapse foundations. On Earth. Ambassador Langley walked through the inner courtyard of the Terran Strategic Council's Deep Earth facility. Around her, advisors whispered and analysts studied council reaction logs. Entire walls lit up with cascading feeds of intercepted panic. She paused at a terminal, pulled up a file titled Phase 2, Ghost Glass. A message scrolled beneath it. Let them feel the silence. When they beg for noise, we'll give them thunder. Langley smiled. Not cruelly, just knowingly. The Galactic Council had never visited the Sol system before, not officially. It had always been Earth that came to them, to the polished marble halls of diplomacy, to the perfect neutral ground of Kalarn V Prime. That had suited the Council just fine. Now they had no choice. Mission: Diplomatic Reconnaissance Vessel. Council Envoy Ship Valiance. Destination: Sol System. Led: Ambassador Krylon of the Shalari Order. Krylon was old. She had survived 5 regime shifts and 2 interstellar wars. She had met human diplomats before, charming, proud, clever, dangerous, but never like this. As the Valiance neared the edge of Terran space, it encountered its first anomaly. The stars disappeared. One moment, the Sol system was a glowing mass of navigational data. The next, it was blank. No charts. No gravity wells. No heat. No light. Just static. Krylon frowned. Report. Scanners malfunctioning, Ambassador, replied the pilot. We lost all stellar signatures in the inner sector. It's blacked out. Cloaking. No known tech can cloak an entire system, ma'am. And yet, the Sol system was gone. They pushed forward. 10 minutes later, all external communications dropped. Long-range comms. Emergency beacons. Even the CouncilNet uplink. Cut clean. It wasn't a jamming field. It was absence. A full blackout. Maintain course, Krylon said. But even she felt her chest tighten. Coordinates, Mars orbit, supposed. There should have been satellites. Mining rigs. Defense drones. Nothing. No Terran ships. No stations. No debris. Just cold vacuum. Then, without warning, the stars in front of them flickered, like someone flipping a switch. And Earth appeared. Suddenly. Perfectly centered. Blue. Green. White. Beautiful. Too beautiful. Pull up visual spectrum scan, Krylon ordered. The crew did. Silence. There's no movement. No storms. No waves. No cloud drift. Earth was still. A digital painting hung in black. One crew member whispered, "That's not live data. That's a projection." Krylon stood from her seat. It's a warning. The moment she said it, every display aboard the Valiance blinked red. Then black. Then a single line of Terran standard appeared on every screen. You watched. You judged. But you never looked. The ship began to shake, gently, as if brushed by some invisible hand. Then Earth vanished again. And with it, so did everything. All power. All propulsion. All life support. For 32 seconds, the Valiance drifted dead in space. In those 32 seconds, no one screamed. No one panicked. They listened. To the nothing. And when systems flickered back online, the ship was no longer in Terran space. They were parked gently, precisely, in orbit over an uninhabited gas giant 3 systems away. No sign of movement. No explanation. Just one audio ping in Krylon's earpiece. Return. Location, Galactic Council. 3 days later. Ambassador Krylon stood before the high table. Eyes sunken. Shoulders stiff. What did you see? Asked Counselor Dree. Krylon looked up, voice thin. Nothing. A pause. Nothing. Violet growled. Not empty. Nothing. It's like Earth no longer exists. Or like it exists somewhere else. She paused. They didn't hide. They withdrew. Why return you unharmed? Dree asked. Krylon shook her head. They weren't trying to hurt us. Her voice dropped lower. They were trying to show us how easily they could have. Meanwhile, Earth's deep space listening station Echo 7. Buried inside Saturn's rings, invisible to the naked eye, Station Echo 7 monitored Council traffic. Its operators watched as panic spread. Multiple systems began tightening border protocols. Minor species petitioned Earth for direct alliances. Protests erupted on Council planets. News feeds exploded with theories. Where did Earth go? What are they planning? Did we push them too far? The humans did not respond. Inside Echo 7, Langley stood behind a pane of reinforced glass, overlooking the command bay. Status of the Valiance? She asked. Returned. Intact. Message received. And Earth's real position? The tech smiled faintly. Still exactly where it's always been. Just refracted. Langley nodded. Good. Let them fear a vanishing act. Next, we show them the reflection. The Galactic Council chamber was quieter than it had ever been. The silence was thick with the weight of the unknown, heavy with the knowledge that something was wrong, deeply wrong, and no one, not even the most seasoned of diplomats, knew exactly what Earth was doing. Krylon stood at the center of the chamber, voice echoing against the walls, recounting her mission. But the words felt hollow now. Her crew, her people, her entire species had been caught in a web of invisibility, a trap laid by a force they couldn't understand. We should have seen it, Krylon admitted, her voice raw. It wasn't an attack. They didn't send weapons. They erased us, without a single shot. Her words hung in the air like a death sentence. The Valiants disappeared from their space. Only for a brief moment. But that moment, it wasn't a fluke. It was planned. The council was still. All eyes turned to her. 2 hours earlier. Earth's deep space listening station, Echo 7. On Earth's side of things, Langley was already moving, her fingers gliding over encrypted consoles, pulling up data from every corner of the galaxy, not through brute force, but with precision. She wasn't merely reading. She was rewriting history. Files began to pour onto the public screens. Galactic truths, buried by centuries of manipulated data, surfaced like ghosts, clawing their way to light. The Council had buried the past, secret wars, forgotten genocides, systematic oppressions of entire species. They'd justified it, claiming necessary conflicts for progress. But Langley's data unspooled everything. Nothing was safe. The Greltan homeworld was colonized not by trade agreements, but by a quiet chemical warfare campaign. The now Confederation didn't evolve, they were engineered. Genetic manipulation was disguised as evolution. The Zalari Dominion's peacekeeping operations were nothing more than mercenary contracts to eliminate rival factions. And the most damning of all, the Council's archives are sealed not for protection, but for the deliberate erasure of inconvenient truths. Galactic Council Chamber, present. The Council's members didn't even blink as the first batch of data flashed across their screens. The Greltan ambassador rose from his seat, wings twitching in barely contained fury. This is an abomination. Lies, declarations meant to slander. Is it slander when the truth has been buried for centuries? Langley's voice rang out through the chamber, cutting through the growing chaos. She had no time for niceties anymore. No more lies. No more pretending. Her words crashed like thunder. The truth is out. And now you will all face the consequences. Krylon, still in shock from her own experience, tried to speak but found herself silenced under the weight of Langley's revelation. The chamber filled with static as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Civilian uprisings, accusations, debunked histories. Entire systems were questioning their allegiance to the Council for the first time in millennia. The Council can no longer control the flow of information, Langley continued, her eyes unwavering. For the first time in history, the people of the galaxy can see what you truly are. We've seen the corruption, the manipulation, the abuses. We didn't, Counselor Dree began, but his voice faltered. No, Langley said, cutting him off. You didn't think we'd ever find out. You thought we'd be too busy with your peace talks to look at the real history. But humans don't forget. She let the words hang, their weight crashing down on every delegate. Simultaneous event, Outer Rim, Council Border Outpost. Hundreds of light years away, a different kind of storm was brewing. The storm of truth. A transmission broadcast was intercepted, unauthorized, but relentless. It was everywhere. The truth was everywhere. By now, every single council member was receiving the data. It was too widespread to censor, too deep to silence. How are they doing this? Counselor Dree gasped, his eyes widening. This is impossible. They've already done it. Krylon spoke now, the weight of her realization settling in. This isn't just data. It's a campaign. A war of knowledge. The truth was not just an awakening. It was a rebellion. It wasn't about weapons. It wasn't about fleets or armies. It was the knowledge of everything the Council had hidden from the galaxy. And now that truth was flooding the galaxy like a tidal wave. Back on Earth, Deep Space Listening Station Echo 7. Langley stood, watching the reactions unfold. But she wasn't smiling. She wasn't celebrating. This wasn't a victory. It was step one. The last of the encrypted files finished uploading. One final file appeared. Her fingers hovered over the key. She had one last choice to make. To release the final piece of the puzzle, or hold it back. She pressed the button. The Council's founder. The file's title was short, simple, devastating. The final piece was a message. Before the founding of the Galactic Council, there were others. They were erased, exterminated. The Council didn't just conquer the stars. They erased the truth from the stars themselves. And humanity Humanity is the last witness. The screen flickered. The truth was alive now. It had been set free. The galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy was unraveling. Worlds across the outer sectors burned with protest. Regimes once loyal to the Galactic Council now trembled beneath the weight of revelation. Factions split. Flags fell. And the only question echoing in every chamber, on every planet, in every mind was the same. What would the humans do next? Galactic Council Chamber Crisis Assembly. Counselor Dree slammed his fist against the datapad. This cannot stand. If we allow this collapse to continue, it will reach the core worlds. It already has, muttered Sar, his voice hollow. There were marches on Darif Prime this morning. The citizens are demanding secession. Because of lies, shouted Vilek. No, Sar replied. Because of truth. And we helped bury it. Across the hall, a low chime rang out. The central chamber darkened. Lights dimmed. A holographic feed activated, untraceable, uninterruptible. The seal of Earth flickered into view. A globe wrapped in fractured circuitry. Then Langley appeared. Calm. Alone. No military insignia. No weapons behind her. Just her eyes, tired, but unwavering. You wanted to know what humanity would do, she began. You thought we would lash out. Send fleets. Burn your worlds. She paused. That's not who we are. The chamber held its breath. You asked us to sit at your table. And we did. We listened. We learned. And we warned you again and again that your peace was a shadow cast by silence and secrets. She leaned forward slightly. You didn't listen. So now we're done speaking. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, in unison across thousands of systems, Earth's signal reached every screen, every school, every government terminal, every home. The message was the same. Humanity is stepping away. We will no longer trade with your council. We will no longer share technology. We will no longer answer your calls. You made your judgment of us. Now live with the weight of your own. Ships that once ferried Terran diplomats began docking at neutral ports and self-deconstructing. Human AI withdrew from foreign systems. Neural net backdoors snapped shut. Code once shared was now encrypted behind quantum firewalls no species could crack. It was not an attack. It was an exodus. Council chamber. This is madness. Vilek roared. They're isolating themselves. They'll doom themselves. Langley's voice cut through again, steady. We've watched how you govern, how you suppress truth. We are choosing something different. We will not rule. We will not conquer. But we will remember. And we will prepare for the day you come back for more. She paused, then added, and we know you will. The transmission ended. No threats. No demands. Just finality. On Earth, Strategic Council bunker, hours later. Langley stood at the observation window, staring at the quiet Earth below. Behind her, an aide stepped forward. The blackout was successful. All outbound Council and comms have been severed. The diplomatic grid collapsed in less than 12 minutes. Langley nodded. And internal responses? Stable. Most of the population supports the withdrawal. Some unrest. Nothing we can't manage. The truth helped. Langley exhaled. It always does. Eventually. 3 weeks later. Fringe system. Unaligned planet Neura 6. The skies over Neura 6 were dark with Council ships. The local people, recently freed by the Council's sudden collapse in control, had begun drafting a planetary charter with the help of Terran AI advisors. When the fleet arrived, they expected resistance. But they found nothing. The advisors were gone. No weapons. No barricades. Only a message etched into the main square of the capital city. You do not need us. You never did. Remember that. Or lose everything again. Final location. Unknown sector. Human Deep Space Observatory. In a facility orbiting a black hole, far beyond the reach of any known warp lanes, Earth's brightest minds now watch the stars. They weren't planning invasions. They were studying everything the Council had never let them see. They were building, quietly, patiently. Because while the galaxy screamed in confusion and power struggled to find its new center, humanity had already moved on. They had always been 2 steps ahead. Now they were light years beyond. One last message. Somewhere in a derelict council listening post, a forgotten monitor flickered to life one final time. A message blinked on the screen, text only. No signature. No coordinates. We are not your enemy. We never were. We simply outgrew your cage.